Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Lancaster Woodturners Coffee Hour number 100 here on April
Wow.
28th, 2022. I still have no idea how we got to 100. It seems like only yesterday we started this. It's been a tremendous amount of fun for me, and you all keep coming back, so it seems like you must enjoy it too. I've operated this thing for the whole last 2 years on the theory of I enjoy myself, most of the people on will enjoy themselves. And that seems to be a pretty good principle for running these kinds of events. So I want to thank you all for your participation over the past months and 2 years, and welcome you all here this morning to this is about all we're going to do to mark this, although maybe I'll show you some of my own recent work, which I haven't done in a very long time. I have a couple of announcements. Next Tuesday is Lancaster Woodturners monthly meeting in New Holland. It will be a hybrid meeting. The demonstration will be Barry, who has figured out how to make his own vacuum chucks. And so we're going to learn all about that. And Barry and I have been working on a video about that as well. So we'll use the material from the meeting as well as the video footage we're shooting in Barry's shop. And we'll have a very nice 20-minute video on making vacuum chucks for lathes and getting them to work. As usual, Barry's gone at it with the fervor of an expert engineer and tool maker and jig maker, and he's really figured out some stuff about it. So I'm looking forward to that demo next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock in New Holland. You guys who are members of the club and live far away, we will be there doing our video thing. I think our setup is full. I think we're going to go out tomorrow afternoon or morning and try and simplify the setup a little bit so that it gets to be teachable again. Let me see, the other announcement I just learned from Ernie. Ernie and I have been collaborating on luring Nick Cook to be our May guest star, and Ernie tells me Nick has agreed. Has he agreed for the 18th of May?
Yes.
Ernie? Yes?
Yes.
So on May 18th, we'll have a slideshow and a shop tour and a chance to ask questions of Nick Cook, who I think everybody's familiar with. He's been an AAW demonstrator for, I don't know, centuries. And he makes projects. He's a production turner, a professional turner, and he makes projects that you too can make. So very accessible stuff. Nick is I've been to many AAW symposiums, and when Nick is doing a demo, the room is packed, and they give him the biggest room. So I think you're all going to enjoy the hour with Nick on May 18th. Those are my announcements. Anybody else got any announcements you want to make?
John,
yeah.
Is Barry going to talk about the Venturi that it runs on an air compressor that Infinity just released?
You're going to have to ask Barry that. And you want to answer that, Barry?
What was the air compressor question?
Oh, the Infinity Tools just released a Venturi based on making vacuum out of air compressor. It looks really interesting. And I wondered if you were going to consider that along with your presentation. It's fascinating.
My presentation will not include the Venturi type just because, well, first of all, it was like my own research into this stuff, and I don't have a compressor big enough to drive a Venturi any better than a shop vac. You know, it's a self-limiting vacuum, no better than a shop vac. And I priced them. I was thinking about buying one to try it, and the good ones are about $150. And I just stayed away from it.
I've seen Barry's shop vac setup. He gets a very good draw with a regular El Cheapo shop vac. Amazing.
All right.
And also from a regular El Cheapo vacuum pump. What he's devised that is a fitting that maintains the vacuum right through the headstock, even as the lathe goes round. And it's very clever and counterintuitive, but I'm going to leave it at that because you'll see it all on Tuesday night. And of course, the club will all post the videos afterwards. So it's going to all be there. This is a show and tell morning, and I have some people who've already said they want to show stuff, and I'm going to ask them to use raise hand so they get into the queue. Kai has something, and Don Smith has something. Can you guys find raise hand and click it? And I've heard from, who else? Kai, Don Smith, Norbert says he has some stuff. Harvie Porter has some stuff. Gerald, you got your hand up there? Is that, who else? Ernie, I know, has a little video to show. Anybody else get in queue? And I have also in Jeff Hankinson. Roy, hello, Roy. Can you find raise hand, Roy? No, I mean raise hand on your Zoom. They're down under the reactions tab. There's if you click the reactions tab, a big bar comes up that says raise hand.
John, could I tell something real quick?
Sure.
I just saw yesterday a couple in Marathon County, I think this is Wisconsin, died from fractal burning.
Yep.
She's 44 and he's 52. And worse than that, they did it in the garage. And I haven't read the whole article, but they did it in the garage, killed them both, and the unit caught on fire, set the house on fire, burned the house down. And when the fire department got there and found two bodies, they thought it was a murder. And finally, the autopsy showed that it was electrocution. And then they found the equipment. So stay away from that stuff.
I
read that same thing. I think it was on the World Wood Turning site this morning.
Yeah, I saw it on my news feed yesterday as well. Yeah, very good lesson there. Okay, I want to get back to a gallery view. I can see what there are with spotlights going on here. Is anybody still spotlighted, or did you guys see in a gallery view? Okay, Bowman's on the stick, knocking off the spotlights. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go in a little bit different order than is on the screen. I'm going to start with Jeff Hankinson, because he and I have been corresponding about these 5-axis, these CNC machines. I think it's going to lead to a bunch of questions in a zone we haven't had before. So Jeff, I'm going to show I put your two short videos together into a 7-minute video. I'm going to show that now. Is that okay with you?
Fine with me.
Okay, you guys are going to have questions, I'm sure, after this, but anyway, we're going to go for it. Share sound, optimize clip, share. Play the video. This is a short video showing my latest 5th axis in action, cutting on a curved form. I created this 5th axis to keep the cutter more or less perpendicular to the surface of the work. For a simple round nose cutter like this one, that doesn't matter so much, but for different formed cutters, it could make quite a difference. This simple form was turned on my wood lathe and then digitized and STL file created using Gerbil Group. This was exported to another program called Corn Lathe, which I used to design this simple pattern of sinusoidal curves. Corn Lathe created some G-code, which was again processed through a Gerbil groove, and then I massaged it to add in the B-axis values that I needed to do what you see here. This entire project took about 5 minutes to cut. It's a 1/8 inch ball nose cutter at 30,000 RPM in a small router. As you can see, the cutter tip is maintained more or less perpendicular to the surface of the wood. I use a lead screw to move this axis, as it would give more rigidity to the turning forces generated by the router.
As you can see, I've got simultaneous movement of the X, Z, A, and B axes. And this was my intention with this project, as opposed to moving one of the rotary axes at a time. Y doesn't come into play, obviously, in this, because I want to maintain the position of the cutter over the center of the work. I hope you enjoyed the video.
So this is regular CNC mode. This is 4th axis mode. And this is lathe mode. And I can put a chuck on here.
Okay, over to you, Jeff. Questions for Jeff?
I'm curious about the motor on your first video. It appeared to be a rotozip tool that you had mounted to your machine. Is that a rotozip?
Yes, sir. That's a rotozip. I actually had the choice of 3. I've got a little DeWalt palm router. I've got a little Makita palm router, or that rotozip. I just happened to fit that one because it's got the key sitting in the handle for taking the bits out of the chuck. And when I read they all were 30,000 RPM, I just stuck that one on. It's convenient.
What did you told me something about the 5th axis being attached to the Z axis, and I didn't quite understand. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Well, most of the time, a lot of people will have a CNC machine and they'll have a 4th axis, and you saw that. That's a rotary one that goes around the X. X goes back and forth. And a lot of the stuff that I do, I've done with a 4th axis. And that's fine. And that's pretty straightforward. Although I've added a lot more than some of these expensive programs can do with simple things. My 5th axis goes up and down, as you saw, and that's mounted on a Z. Most of the time you see a 5th axis is attached to the 4th axis, and it's kind of a swing setup. Like they call it a trunnion, and it goes back and forth just like it's sitting on a swing seat. And I built one of those, but to code for those is really hard. Whereas the way I did it, mounting it on the Z, it popped into my head one night. and it cost me a couple hours sleep, but it's super easy to code for a simple curve.
So it swings like this as well as going up and down, and it swings in plane with the x-axis.
The fifth axis, it rotates around the Y.
Okay.
So it doesn't swing. It goes back and forth like a car window wiper.
Okay. And that's what allows it to follow the curve.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you've got the rotation on the x-axis is rotating the piece, which makes the sine wave or whatever other shape you program in there.
Yep.
So how much of that apparatus did you build, and how much could you buy?
You know, you could adapt. I built everything, but you could adapt that idea to any simple CNC, like a Shakeopo or something like that. A lot of people will have a fourth axis. They do cylinders with them, and that's all that they can do. And some years ago, I started corresponding with the author of Girbelgru, who is in Germany, actually, somewhere near Cologne. Very nice man. And with his program, I can digitize the outside of one of my shapes. So the shapes that I cut are my turnings. So I'll put them on the fourth axis, and then using a simple Z probe, and no kidding, this Mark II is very simple.
We're not seeing it because of your background. Hold it in front of your face. There you go.
How about that?
Yeah, we can see
So
it.
this cost me probably $1. You can spend hundreds of dollars on these, and then when you crash them, you cry like anything. But this is a bit of wire, a spring from a ballpoint pen, and a little switch. That's it. And it works. And the way those things work is you can just go and sample the points along the curve with that program Girbelgru, and it'll save it and generate a three-dimensional, it'll spin it around the axis, so you just get a three-dimensional file of what you've got, and then I can use that in other programs. So I can export that to expensive ones like carve, which I have, but they can't do a B-axis. They sort of do an A-axis. They're not made for this, and you can spend an awful lot of money on them, and they don't work.
Any more questions for Jeff?
These are really, these things really shine when you need 50 pieces that look alike. You know, to do one piece, it's fun to watch, but if you need 50 pieces, all you have to do is remount it and push the button. Fabulous.
Yeah, if you can cut the curve using something like that, but I don't do production stuff, and but I do like having to be able to work on my own pieces. So if it's each of mine are pretty unique. I don't turn them all the same. Then I can individually, and it only takes, to get the readings across the top of a curve only takes like, a minute. Doesn't take long at all once you figure out what's going on.
Jeff, could you just use, without that, what do you call the fourth axis? Could you just cut it and then hollow it out afterwards? You didn't have the same effect. Do you get what I'm saying?
You could, but I think a wood lathe is a lot faster. The program author has, wondered why the heck I had a wood lathe in the first place. I could do it all on a CNC. And I said, no, a wood lathe is much, much faster than doing this with a router on a CNC machine. And you don't get the nice finish either. So I'll finish a piece, and then I'll put, see, this is done with a simple fourth axis. I don't know if you can see that, but you don't need a fifth for this. But I sampled the curve all along there, and then created a program, and then the A axis, the fourth axis spins this, and you just, at each stage you cut it. This was with a 1/4 inch ball nose by the looks of it. And that's a nice little form. Pretty easy to do fluting. Took about, oh, I don't know, 5-6 minutes, something like that.
Well, how much programming time is behind that, though? How much software messing around do you have to do?
Not very much anymore. You know, I was doing those, I was hand coding some of that stuff. The very first one I did, I hand coded it, and that took a while. I just had to figure it out for one line and then repeat it every so many degrees.
Uh-huh.
And I'm working with Gerbilgru's author to get some simple decoration options in his program. This program is free, and it runs on very simple equipment. You know, the control card is cheap. It's an Arduino Mega 2560. It's cheap. It's little. Oops, it's little. I use that to drive external stepper motor drivers with a power supply, and away you go. Like you don't have to spend a fortune on this stuff. Like
Now-
my $1 Z Pro. You know, I'm still using it. I made it years ago. That's the Mark II, and it's still working. When I crash it, I just bend it back.
More questions for Jeff?
Yes, when you sample, does the program choose the sampling distance that you go along there, or do you choose that? Do you randomly? It's sort of calculus in a spreadsheet, I guess.
No, the program does it all. Well, you put in the distance you want to sample. So I used to sample the whole thing, and now I just sample the part that I want to decorate. It makes figuring it out simpler later. There on my YouTube site, Embellished Turnings, there's a brief demo of using Gerbilgru as to get the points on a curve, and there's another demo of applying a regular DXF file to project it on a curve. So it's fun to do this stuff, but say you want to do a lizard or something like that and stick that on the side of something, then this software can do it quite easily. And it's free.
Would you mind putting
It's
in the
not
chat the links that the software link and your own channel stuff in the chat, and then I'll be able to publish the chat after the meeting along with the video.
I will so.
Okay.
Yep.
Also, this is embellishing. You can use the router to make pieces that fit each other, so that I made a puzzle piece for my stool top, and it makes two pieces exactly fit each other. So you can make bowl blanks that are gorgeous, all kinds of them.
Well, you showed us those things a couple of weeks ago, and we didn't quite see your machine. We saw the puzzle pieces, though. You showed us those.
I don't have a machine. I use the Makerspace machine.
Okay, that's why we don't see your machine.
No way. I don't have room to get it in my shop.
Anybody else on this, or do we move on? I don't want to use the whole hour for it, but I know that there's intense interest by some in the subject, so I thought we'd have a nice little intro there. Okay, I'm going to focus today, as I like to do with people who have not shown us stuff lately. Joanne, what would you like to show us today? Joanne's from another from Alberta. Where's Gainford? Near Edmonton? Near Calgary?
It's about 45 minutes west of Edmonton.
Okay, on the way to Hinton.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Just set. I've been working on a collaboration for the WIT committee. And so this is what
that's the Women in Turning Committee for AAW.
Yes.
Yes.
And so we're trying to meet the deadline. And so my part of our sculpture is this horn. Whoop. I guess I could take this apart, but this is going to be the platform for it.
Who's your collaborator?
Nicole McLeod from Montreal and Donna Rizzer from Queen Charlotte's, Haida Gaida.
Ida Guay, yeah.
Ida Guay, thank you.
And how did you make this orange thing?
Well, it's turned first of all on the lathe. as a horn, and then I segment it, dismantle it, and so I can create this, glue it back up in this curve. And I should also mention that I'll be heading out to Ron Campbell's retreat in Michigan for June to demonstrate how to do this. I'm really looking.
That's a technique that Mike Hoseluk invented, I think.
Mike Hoseluk, Michael Keys has done them. There's quite a few over the years that I've attended their demos and everything else. So I'm not sure which one typically is influencing this one. But yeah, it's a combination of demos that I've attended. And so the rest of it is carved and textured. But yeah, it's been a really fun project to do. I haven't given them a name yet, but anyway, we'll hopefully have it for the symposium in Chattanooga, which I'm going to be headed for as well. So it's been fun. Most of my time has been taken up by this piece, trying to meet the deadline. I don't do well on deadlines, as most of the guys in my guild knew.
Any questions for Joanne? What kind of paints are you using?
Airbrushing with Copic markers or Copic airbrush markers. Also Lumiere paints that I did in the details. Let's see. Within the carving.
Did you see our show a couple of weeks ago with Jacques Vezery, where he talked about many layers of thin acrylic? Yeah.
Yes, I've attended a lot of his demos. I was also watching him during the Alaska symposium. I'm a big admirer of his work.
He's very good. Any other questions for Joanne?
What is the base made of?
The base actually was dug out. The last time I was at Ron Campbell's retreat, I stayed with Steve Lohr and his wife. And he had come up with this, he had dug this up from some kind of landfill. It was such an interesting piece of wood. And so he gave it to me, hoping I would do something with this. Now, this was in 2017 when I got this. So I've had it in my shop for quite some time, trying to find a right time to do it. But it's got embedded, I really don't even know what kind of wood it is. It's extremely hard.
You think it is wood though, do you?
Oh, it's definitely wood. It's definitely wood.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's got embedded. I almost think it's petrified because it was dug out, and I could see signs of bird's eye in the corners.
Oh yeah.
It's got embedded rocks and pebbles in it. It was such a beautiful texture, and so I've got another. There was two pieces dug out. This one I got cut up, and so I'm going to have to finish off the end so that it looks like the rest by carving and texturing. And then all I did was dye it. I believe I dyed it. But it was such an interesting texture. Initially, I got it with the hopes of duplicating that texture on one of my bowls or one of my other turnings or whatever else. But I love the piece. I fell in love with that piece of wood. It was just such an interesting looking piece of wood.
It looks like stone. Yeah.
It does. Well, it looks like stone and something from another planet, which suits my project perfectly.
So you all are going to go to Chattanooga in June to the AAW symposium. We'll see this stuff in person, and you can probably meet Joanne too.
Oh, I hope to meet some of you down there.
That base piece looked like a seahorse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
was wood the first medium that you've worked in, or were you an artist or great with colors and shading on other like flat objects?
Colors I discovered when I started turning. When I started turning, I was working with a lot of, I work with a lot of birch, which is a very flat, plain looking wood. And so I needed to find a way to embellish my work. And I just, through research and stuff, I mean, I was a carver before I started turning. And so working with this, the thing that appeals to me so much to the wood turning, especially with birch, is that it's a perfect canvas to apply art. I've had a lot of experience in a lot of different crafts. I started out sewing, crocheting, so through my mom, and then carving. But I have interest in leather work, metal work, glass work. The thing that appeals me the most, I think, about wood turning is the opportunity to gain so many different skills in different things. I also turn alabaster. I've turned cardboard, chocolate. It's just a perfect medium for me.
I think for most of us.
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely very addictive.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried carving on man-made, like dense foam and?
Yeah, dense foam. I've done carrots. I've done, like I said, cardboard, alabaster. What else have I turned? Corian. Is that how you say it? Correct. Corian.
Corian. Yeah.
Plastic. Anything that can be chipped, I'll carve.
All right.
I'd like to show one more piece.
Okay, we'll keep the spotlight on you.
Which still needs to be finished, but this is another variation of my horns. I still have to finish embellishing the horn, but this was all carved out and then pyrographed, and so.
So are the little birds and things, are they applied on?
They're part of the wood.
They're all part of the same piece of wood.
It's all one piece of wood, and like I said, it's all wood burned. With the use of the dental drill, it's I really do have to finish this one. I'd like to take that one with me as well.
Yeah, you should finish that one. That's very nice. I can see how that making that led you to the one you were working on now too.
Yeah, it's very different, but that's the fun of this. Is there's so many different opportunities for design and ideas, and it's just a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, Joanne.
Thank you.
I'm going to take the spotlight off of you. We haven't heard from Harvie in a long time either. Harvie, what do you got today? And I'm going to go to Roy Johnsen next. Roy was trying to work on his share, so we'll come to you, Roy. Don't worry. There you go.
Anyway, I ended up finding out that there were 2 nails in the wood, and I managed to chip them out and get them, but they've got some interesting stain going through the cherry, and so it was a little different. I've got somebody who wanted me to make them a couple more cherry bowls, and I have to see if the customer will be interested in the staining or whether I have to keep turning a couple more bowls for. So that was it.
Very nice piece. Any questions for Harvie? Okay. Thank you, Harvie.
You're welcome.
Roy, are you there someplace? Where are you? Yeah. Are you ready to share screen?
Yes. Yep. This is a piece that I've been working on for about two months because I've had a lot of responsibility to help Judy during these days. But a friend who was with me had given me this hunk of wood that was 2.5 inches wide and 2 inches deep, and it was 20 inches long. So I glued them up together to get this piece. And I was thinking, this is really cool. And then when I was cutting it out in the inside, I went a little bit too greedy, and this is what was left. I put that piece of wenge in the bottom, and still came out to look pretty cool. And then in addition to that, I did the bottom of it to get that way. So all things considered, took a little bit of time for me to get there, but I think it's a pretty interesting piece. And you look and see how this was all glued together or joined together and see how it does.
So that started out as color core plywood. Was that it?
I have no idea, but it's dense. It's very dense, more than plywood, but it was all colored like this. And it was one piece, 20 inches, 2.5 inches wide and 2 inches deep.
Very nice.
So anyway, I just was able to finish that yesterday afternoon and stick that other bottom piece on there so nobody knows that there's a hole in the bottom.
Roy, welcome to the Funnel Rescue Club.
I have to tell you, let's see, I really started turning back in 1968 and did a lot of woodwork starting when I was still in seminary. It's been more than one time that I have messed up by going through the bottom of a bowl. But you learn and you have fun.
Hey, that's my specialty. I go through the bottom, so I'm an opportunity to create art. So
I think a lot of us have made a lot of funnels in our time. Very nice work, Roy. Thank you for showing.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm going to save Kai and Barry, and I'm going to go to Norbert. What do you have, Norbert?
I have two pieces.
Show us.
And I'll start with the larger piece, which is walnut. And I did this again last year before Christmas, before we went down to Florida. And so what you'll see is a piece that I had in the shop for many years until I finally turned it. And you see a number of splits in it, which are then filled with the same walnut that this came out of. I took some chunks off of it before I turned it. And then the bottom, I put in epoxy with chips and walnut coloring so that the base wouldn't move on me where the splits started. So it's been stable now for the last 4 or 5 months, 6 months maybe. And it's a lacquer finish on top. And I have a Purple Heart collar. And then I finished up with it. I'll show you the whole piece. But this is the finial that I created for this piece.
Very nice.
And then it is ebonized. That's maple ebonized. And when you put the things together, that's what the piece looks like. So I left the splits in there because that's just part of the wood. And most of the people I asked if they would object if they owned a piece like this, they said, well, it's like a tree. It has age, it shows age, the bark comes off or it doesn't, and it just shows character. So I had very few people who ever object to having any kind of natural splits within the wood itself. So then the second piece, I told you I was going to finish and show you. This is a basswood box that I turned on the lathe and then embellished with chip carving. So I finally have it finished. The
Hold it up a
finial
little higher.
is-
Hold it a little
Okay.
higher so we can see it. There you go, and hold it still. That's good.
So let me open it up. So I'll show you the bottom. Okay, so that's all hand done with the chip carving knives. Here's the inside. So if you look at the top, you can actually see the triangular cuts from the chip knife. Then the top that I said I would show when it's finished, which fits on. And when you look at it whole, there is the top. And the finial is actually white pine. I found a real dense piece and put it on the lathe, and that's the finial, and then carved the finial. So, and it's done with a matte lacquer, 2 coats of lacquer. So
Very nice.
that is the box I promised you I would show you.
That's a very nice piece.
So that's
Questions for Norbert?
You sure that's not CNC?
No, that's all hand done. Yeah, it's all hand done. I do a lot of embellishment, but since I have the background in wood carving, I use a lot of carving tools. And for me, it's as natural as some people use a CNC. So, and next week, I'll show you some other pieces that I've done to give you some idea. But the biggest issue is with doing these is realizing and knowing the grain structure and the blade on the tools. If they're not sharp, you're not going to get anywhere. So chip carving and carving itself, the tools 100% need to be sharp. Otherwise, you're just pushing some grain around. You're not really cutting. So that's the biggest thing I could say. And so this actually is a spontaneous design. I had no design ahead of time. Put it on the lathe, then did the indexing to 24 spaces. And after the 24 spaces, I then just transferred my pattern to the lid and did the same thing with the lid. Just a spontaneous design by hand.
I'm afraid you've frozen.
That's it.
Very interesting. Okay, I'm going to take the spotlight off you because you're frozen. You've thawed out now. Any other questions for Norbert?
Are you going to Chattanooga?
Hang on. Unfortunately, no, because I'm having major surgery here next week. Actually, it was for a week from Tuesday, next Tuesday. And I don't know if I'm going to be ready for that. I'm going to have a total knee replacement. And my issue is not so much being able to get there, but the problem is being on my feet and worried about swelling and edema, those kind of things. And so I'm limited to 6 weeks of no driving, and then, looking at 12 weeks of maybe some limited activities. So that puts a big crimp into it. So I would have gone, but not this year, unfortunately. So
Well, best of recovery to you then.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norbert.
Thank you.
Kai, it's your turn. What do you have?
So I'll share something with you. Okay, so you can see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. A bowl of eggs. You will say Easter is over, but these are not actually eggs, but spinning tops. And I can show you how they spin.
Oh, fantastic.
That is very cool.
Very cool.
Ask aside.
Now, therefore, are they symmetrical, or are they not, unlike eggs? Are they symmetrical end to end?
No, they are eggs. There's actually an egg shape, but you can spin them. And I think the reason why they turn over like a tippy top is that they have an egg shape. So you need to have an egg shape.
Let's see that spinner again. Let's see, because that looks like it was turned and then sawed.
Yeah, I've actually got a photo of it. So that's the spinner. It was turned and then put to a belt sander to make it a bit thinner in this way and to round over the corners. And that's the way it was turned. I took a board of a wooden board about half an inch in thickness and drilled a hole with a Forstner bit into it, 40 millimeters, so a little bit less than an inch, or a bit less than an inch.
And 2 inches. Oh, 20 radius, a bit less than an inch. Yes.
Yeah, radius is 20 millimeters and diameter 40 millimeters. So the diameter is less than an inch. And then I put the board between. And I cut away the waste here in these areas and on the other side as well. And then I put the board between centers and turned it so I could make the the handle, and then the outside. The hole was already there because I had drilled it. Yeah, and then in the end, I cut it in half here. So I got 2 spinners, and yeah, and took it to the belt sander to get the shape or refine the shape a little bit.
How did you know that was going to work? Had you seen it before, or did you figure it out?
I had seen it before, only the spinner was turned in a different way. Someone in our wood turning club turned like the top of a goblet, and he sanded away the 2 sides of the goblet then and got the spinner out of it. And I thought it might be easier to make the spinner this way, starting with a piece of wood rectangular and then drill the hole instead of turning the goblet and then sending everything away. And I also get 2 of at one time, 2 of the spinners.
What I mean, did you know the egg was going to spin, or have you seen that before? Or did you figure that out? I wouldn't have thought it would have worked.
No, I had seen it before. So to spin an egg wasn't actually my idea, I have to admit. So that was the other guy's idea who turned the spinner using the goblet shape and sending away the sides of the goblet. But I don't actually know whether it was his idea actually to spin an egg or whether he had seen it somewhere. But he showed it at our club, and I thought it's a nice thing because I like spinning tops.
Do you turn the egg to fit the spinner or the spinner to fit the egg?
I turn the egg to fit the spinner, as I have got a 40 millimeter Forstner bit. So I did actually, I have a drawing here. I did a 40 millimeter egg as well, starting with a blank diameter between 40 and 41 millimeters. So I'll leave a little bit for finishing the surface sanding. And that's the template for turning the egg shape.
Oh, you used the template as opposed to just turning by eye.
Yes, I did. I just marked the end, the highest spot, and the other end, and then this, and I'll leave a little bit of a 10 on the left-hand side towards the headstock of 20 millimeters in diameter, and a thinner one on the tailstock side. And then my my template just fits over it, and I can test whether the shape is all right. Because it actually needs to be in egg shape, otherwise it won't turn over.
Kai, have you tried to spin an actual egg?
No, and I think it doesn't work. I haven't tried it because I didn't want to break one, but people told me that it won't work because the fluid inside the egg keeps it from turning over.
You have to hard boil it and then it will spin.
Yeah, I could try that. You still have some air in the egg, even if you hard boil it. I don't know whether the mass distribution is even inside the egg, but it might work then. Yeah, I'll have to try.
It's the classic test for whether an egg is hard boiled or raw, is you spin it on end, and a hard boiled one will spin, where one that's raw will just flop all over in every direction.
Okay, so I will try hard-boiled eggs then. Yeah.
Can we see the video again?
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
Can we see the video again?
Yeah, of course. I just have to go back. Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, that's the interesting part. Now it will just go on spinning.
Does it always stand up on the smaller radius? On the pointier end?
Yeah, I guess so. I have to spin an egg several times and test it. I can tell you next time.
All right.
But we'll have a cracking good time with that anyway.
I guess it spins the same way all the time. I just try to move it slowly.
It all depends what side of the equator you're on.
No.
So yeah, okay, that's it.
That's totally brilliant, Kai. Thank you very much.
Kai,
You're welcome.
Koethe, you should put a magnet in one of those eggs and get one of those spinners that you use in a lab. And then you could surprise people, lay the egg down and it starts spinning. So
yeah, funny idea. Yeah.
Okay. Barry, what do you got?
I'll just, the last minute thing, a couple of days ago, in response to your request, John, that I make something to demonstrate sucking onto my vacuum jig, I got turning this and it was done with a single mount, which as part of my vacuum demonstration is going to be cleaning this off with the interior face here in against the vacuum chuck. It just turned out prettier than I expected, so I'm going to go ahead and actually put some more effort into it. Right now it has one coat of water locks on it. It needs a few more coats to be a finished item, but it was done just by, I glued a cherry blank onto a 2-inch thick disc of this Mojave wood and turned both the front and rear and the inside all from one mount. So it has not been remounted at all.
What about the black? Is that an inlay piece or is that color? The black ring?
That was like a couple of things. I did magic marker and then using an alcohol, what do you call them? Stedler pen to do the rim, the very outer edge to avoid getting the magic marker onto the wood. It was a trial to keep it as a very clean edge. But, and then I put shoe polish, what do you call it, shoe dye on it. I just kept trying different things that would resist when I put when I went to rub the water locks on. Everything, water locks seemed to attack everything and take it back down to bare wood. But the solution was finally to spray a thin film of polyurethane and then apply the water locks.
Very nice.
So it's all part of the same wood.
Oh yeah, it's all one piece of wood. I'm sorry.
That's not an inlay. No.
Yeah, I turned it with just, you can see there's a slight on edge there. There's a slight raised rim.
Yeah.
About an eighth of an inch, I guess.
That's very nice turning.
Yes.
Other questions for Barry? Okay. We got a couple more minutes. Dawn, you want to try it again? Are you ready?
Just do very quickly.
Still looking for the share. What do we got here? Now, tell us about this.
Right. Is this the only photograph we've got? It seems to be.
Okay. Yes, one photo. That's what we got. We see milk bottles.
Right. Back in 2008, I had a museum come to me and asked if I could make a couple of milk bottles for them. So I made these milk bottles and I gave them to them, and they came back and asked me for some more. And I'm trying to get the other pictures up. Here we go. So here we are going through them. There's the 24 milk bottles.
Wow.
Now you made them all, did you make a template or just turn them to measure and parting tool? How did you do?
They were all done literally by eye and calipers.
Eye and calipers. That's the way turners would do it, all right. They're not hollow, are they? They're solid.
They're solid. They are solid.
And what are they going to do with them?
Right, I'll show you. Once we've done that, I had to get them painted white. So I took them to a friend and we sprayed them white and we gave them to the museum. And the museum had them silkscreen printed and had a silver top put on them. And then they were put into a trade spike at the museum. And I made them 6 wooden eggs in different speilies and what have you. And then I made 6 more eggs and painted them grey to make them look like duck eggs. And that is the project that was done for the museum.
So it's to make a permanent exhibit of a tradesman's bike from days gone by. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Very, very nice. Very cool.
Did they put your name on it, Don?
No, the paint went over my name. My name was on the bottom, but it all got painted off. If I got a couple of more minutes, I'll just quickly go through this one, John. This is the bowl I showed you. That's the screw chuck I've got on those pin jaws. And what I do is I make a distance piece with a OG in it.
That's just a separator, a spacer.
It's made out of MDF.
Yeah.
And it sits over the top.
Yeah, it's a spacer.
And I've got a nice face here. When I get a bowl to turn, I just put a recess with a Forstner bit that will sit comfortably over those jaws that just stick up through the piece of MDF. And then I just go ahead. That's my chucking point on the back at the moment. Now I've marked up 12 pieces. Now I made a mistake. Well, not at this point I didn't make a mistake. I measured 3 different dimensions from the edge of the blank. Inch, inch and a quarter, and inch and a half. And what I did, when I looked at this, I thought, hello, I'm in trouble. And I seem to have lost the photograph. I went on the inch and a half distance. I shouldn't have done. I should have gone on the inch and a quarter.
Oh, I see.
There's the bowl turn. I haven't got the full effect, which these should be pair dropped. Now, if I'd gone up to the inch and a quarter or inch dimension, that would have elongated these rondels much deeper.
Uh-huh. So you're, in other words, you're going to use the shape of the bowl to get to turn that into an egg shape or an oval shape rather than a round shape, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just make slight point on the pear drop shape on the inside of the bowl. And then I sanded the inside, put it on my button jaws, removed the base and did that piece.
Very nice piece.
Finished bowl.
So Don, the steeper the bowl shape, the more pear drop, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Correct, Jim. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to end the share. Are you done with slides? I'm going to end the share.
That's it. That's it. That's everything I've got to show there today. Thank you very much, John.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. Since we're at the tip of the hour, I'm going to take a moment of liberty here. This is what I've been working on lately. This is a octahedron. It's made with 6 rare earth magnet balls and 6 rods that each have rare earth magnets in their ends. And the trick with this is really one of network connectivity. You try and make this with magnet rods that are dipole like real magnets with a north end and a south end, but it turns out you can't do that entirely. You have to have a couple of single gender ones that are both north and both south. And what happens is each pair of opposite poles is a north and a south. And so is this pair is a north and a south. And so is this pair is a north and a south. So you wind up with a set of magnet rods that some are north-south, some are north-north, and some are south-south. And I turned them with the balls in the middle because I thought I would connect them with strings to show the dual solid, the cube that's the related solid to the octahedron. But I haven't gotten to that yet. I've also made tetrahedrons and icosahedrons using this same technique, and I'm struggling with cubes and dodecahedrons. I'm going to make a series of videos and little sculptures that make all the Platonic solids, and I'll turn that into a video someday. So this is what I've been working on when I haven't had COVID and been otherwise occupied. And I wanted to just show you that because I don't usually show you anything I'm working on as a.
That's very cool. Is it, can you dismantle it? Is it only being held by the magnets?
Only held by the magnets. Yeah, sure, completely. But they are magnets. They're not steel balls. A steel ball doesn't have the wherewithal to do to hold a piece of this size. So this has to be a magnet. And spherical magnets are all magnetized north-south. You know, there's North Pole and the South Pole, just like the Earth. So that's how that works. So, you know, I've made a lot of these kinds of things. I've probably made 100 of these rods that have got magnets in the ends. And what I usually do is color code them so that I use a marker so that there's a little bit of red on one end if it's one pole and the opposite pole doesn't have any color. But I don't care which is north or which is south. I just care that I can tell that this particular rod has got a north and a south end, as opposed to other ones in here that have only one pole. So,
John, have you tried that with magnetic balls?
They are magnetic balls.
The balls are magnets as well?
Yes, they have to be. If the balls are just ball bearings, it doesn't work. And that's where but on the other hand, if the balls are just ball bearings, then all the magnets can be north-south. But the rare earth magnet in the rod doesn't have the strength to hold the form together on a straight steel ball. It needs to be magnets both ways. In my in my experience, anyway. I've been fooling with this kind of stuff for a few years, and I'm in the middle of a project that's coming very slowly because of other reasons but I'll end up with a set of Platonic solids and related geometric forms that are all made this way, and a little video. Here's one of them, one of the little sculptures. This is I'll get my spotlight back just for a second. I'm not going to try and assemble this right yet, but you know, on screen for you. But this has 4 balls that are all here on magnets. So that, and the cup is, everything's ball. You know, the cup sits here with a magnet, and then these are the rods, and these will make a tetrahedron. So it's a tetrahedron with its storage container. But I'm not going to assemble the tetrahedron because it's a little tricky and it'll fumble around too much for you guys to.
John, I'm a little dense. Could you just put plain metal in the rods and then the ball would hold it, or doesn't that work either?
Doesn't work either. You don't have enough power. You don't get enough attraction. You have to have magnets on both to really get a strong enough grip for a solid. These are 6 inches long or 8 inches long, so you have to have you know. And I want these things to be big enough to be playable with. You know, they stick very nice to a chandelier, and yeah, I'll show you more about them another time. I just wanted to take my own moment here, and since this is.
Where do you get the magnets?
Pardon?
Where do you get the magnets?
K&J Magnetics. You can find them very easily. They sell rare earth magnets. Rare earth magnets are a little bit expensive, but if you buy lots, the very useful sizes are 3/16 in diameter by 3/16 long, and the balls are 1/2 inch balls. I've also got 5/8 balls, but you know, get into this very far, you'll wind up with quite an investment in magnets. They're about 30 cents each.
Do they sell the balls too?
Yes.
Okay, great.
They sell the balls. They sell little cylindrical magnets are the ones that I find most useful, which you can get in any diameter, really, and any length. But they are almost always magnetized one end to the other, but sometimes they're magnetized in the other plane, but that's much less common.
Could you put that link in?
Yes, I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
I'll add it to the chat afterward, yeah. All right. And with that, kids, we've come to the end of, we've actually gone 10 minutes over, which we almost never do. So I'll chalk that up to this being number 100 in this series. And once again, thank you all for your participation. This has been a wonderful series.
Thank you, John.
Thank you,
Another great day, John. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
everyone.
Cheers, Michael.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
See you, John.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.